I leave for 1 minute and I've forgotten how to use a microphone. So I'm going to speed through the first 10 minutes of this because I've already done it. Hi, welcome back to my channel. Would you like a bookcase tour sometime? Let me know in the comments below. What have I been up to? Oh, that's very nice of you to ask. I've been doing nothing. I've done a lot of reading and I've been doing my podcast. I have a podcast, the Alizee Show. We had The Right Opinion. Yes, The Right Opinion. We had him on the other day, so go check it out. Follow the links below. I don't just Google it, use your hands. Like, comment, subscribe, resubscribe. Do the stuff for the engagement. I'm probably going to need it because YouTube likes to penalise channels that don't upload every single other second. So, what have I been reading? Well, I found this book through a meme in a kind of what's the most young adult book to come out in the wake of the, towering success that was The Hunger Games. And that is a book called Hungry by H.A. Swain. I read this book and for the first 30 pages, I just kind of, I was very dismissive and snarky as I usually am. And then for some reason, the story goes from 0 to 100. And after I finished reading it, I was left feeling a little bit shell-shocked, a little bit like, what the fuck have I just spent the last 6 hours reading and writing a review alongside? What just happened? I'm bemused. So let's go over the review that I wrote for this book together. How fun's that? I will just preface by saying it's not great. This is the most ridiculous young adult dystopian book, I've read a few, I've ever read. It's not bad in the same way that 50 Shades of Grey is bad because it just sets a bad example for people, and we'll go through that page by page at some point in the future. Trust me, I promise. I'm going to turn into a booktuber now. No more drama. Adios. Sayonara drama. Hajime this. So an important trope in young adult fantasy dystopian fiction is the main character has to be special and different from anyone else. So Hungry is about a society where there was some sort of war that caused famine and fighting, and this one world, it's called One World, this megacorp destroyed all these seeds, so there's no plant, there's nothing. But they sell, and they have a monopoly on selling this synthetic, it's called Synthamil, nutritional drink that meets everyone's nutritional needs, so they don't need to eat anymore. And it also fucks with people's hormones, so it suppresses the hormone that would set off the hunger link, if that makes sense. So people don't feel hungry or feel like they crave food or want any. And a lot of the younger generation, they've grown up never eating food, like our MC. But what makes her so super special and different is she feels her stomach growl. And as this is the future, everyone acts like robots, and all the technology has funny references, like I was at a plug-in event, or everyone had their ears on, which I guess probably just means headphones. They have mobile phones that they call gizmos instead of mobile, because that sounds so much better than phone. Gizmo, okay. It's not funny. I clutch myself around the middle as if that will stop the noise from coming out again. This doesn't happen to anybody else I know. Something's wrong with me. I'm a freak. Love that teenage angst. That's really relatable for the teenage audience who's going to be reading this book. This character is super special. She has a disdain for modern technology and clothes. Even her grandma notices. From upstairs, I hear pinging on the main screen. Ugh, I groan. Probably mum sending more virtue shops. She thinks I need new pants. Grandma frowns. I love your little skirts and jeans. Of course you do. They were yours. When I wore them, they were just farm girl clothes, but you have such a wonderful independent sense of style. The screen pings again. Very unique, different and special. Everyone comments on just how special this guy, just all the Mary Sue tropes. Hey, she squints at me. Are you on your family's main screen? This is her best friend talking. Yeah, so what? Why can't you use your gizmo like everybody else so we can have a private conversation? I'm not incapable, I just tell her, quoting my grandma. Just uninterested. Just insufferable, more like. Be nice to your mate. So her friend, her best friend called Yaz, tries to convince her to do normal teenager stuff, but our MC is too special for that. Yaz sidles up to the hovercam and cradles it in her palm. Talia, Google just said it's Talia, so anyone has a problem with that, take it up with Google. Talia, my little kilobite. Just so you know that we're in the future. If you never leave the confines of your home, how can we have any fun? I have fun, I say. She swats her camera away. By text chatting with a bunch of cyber ninja freakazoids, you guys don't even use video. That's to protect our privacy. And anyway, the dinosaurs are not freakazoids, I say, but then I reconsider. Okay, so a lot of them are pretty strange, but they're my friends. She rolls her eyes. Friends are supposed to be for fun. To be fun. Tal. Look it up. It's part of the definition, which is why Yaz, does a goofy dance in the middle of her room. I'm the best friend there ever was. Freakazoid is dated slang even by today's standards. I've not heard anyone say freakazoid outside of a nerd versus jock 80s high school teen movie. So I don't know why they'd be saying it in the future. And does Goofy Dance? Did Anision write this? Because I'm getting flashbacks. Our main character is friends with this anti-capitalism, anti-corporation. Great, cool. That's stuff that I could usually go for, called dinosaurs. But with a Y, because we're in the future. And we should like them. We should root for them. I should root for them. They're our MC's group. We should like them, but they just sound like boomers. She drops her arms. No, you don't. All the dinosaurs do is talk about how great things used to be and how everything sucks now. And then they try to figure out how to break stuff so the rest of us can't have fun either. There are political groups today that speak like this. And these are meant to be the futuristic good guys. Okay, whatever. It's not that I hate technology, just the kind that never leaves you alone, like Yaz's new hovercam. So as soon as Astrid, which is an equivalent of Siri, I believe, Astrid's happily snoozing wavy grey lines across my gizmo screen, I switch to a stealth server so I can log on to the dinosaurs network using my hacker name, Hector Protector. Every time I say it, it gets stupider and stupider. At this point, I was already questioning what the hell am I reading. So we have our sinister, dystopian overlords, a conglomerate called One World who want total market domination. This says a lot about Amazon and Jeff Bezos. Which is why it's legal for the dinosaurs to exist, even if what they do is sometimes against the law. Their existence is a prime example of why libertarianism Their existence is a prime example of why libertarianism works, Dad told me. If there were no outlets for the skeptics, One World would be perceived as a corporate dictator and more people might rebel. It just so happens One World is very good at distracting most people from questioning the system by keeping everyone's belly full and brain entertained. Except for the dinosaurs and our MC, she's too smart for that. Their greatest source of entertainment is throwing wrenches in One World systems, and that means people like my dad are continually trying to outsmart the dinosaurs by creating better cybersecurity. Honestly, I think my dad likes the elaborate chess game he's playing with these guys more than he likes making new products. And that is the most dystopian dystopia I've ever read. Our main character is a super hacker, and you can't make it up, or you can because it's a made-up book, but you kind of can't make it up. There's something in this story called a procreation pool meetup site, just so you know how abnormal society has become, how like detached from nature. It's like someone wrote a checklist of young adult dystopian tropes and the author read them and thought, oh, neat, a compiled list of plot points and themes. This is great. I grab it and slip it diagonally across my body. Look, it's perfect. I tuck my sleeping gizmo inside. One of a kind, just like you, my dear. That was the grandma talking. The grandma is a simp. She also reminisces about the past too much, so at this point I betted that One World would bump her off sometime. Spoiler alert, not that lucky. So what do you want to do? She asked. This is the friend, Yaz. Nothing, I mutter, which of course doesn't compute with a nano-brain. It sounds like yet another young adult novel where the main character hates all of her friends. One Bella Swan was enough, thank you. The main character is reminiscing about a planet she never knew. Minuscule carbon-based helicopters buzzing flower to flower, every creature on a genetically encoded mission to propagate. Now all that remains is the light of stars snuffed before the animals and plants died out, and the moon a sterile rock, just the kind of place my mother would love. They're trying to tell us that bees no longer exist. No bees, no pollination, all the animals and plants died. And the trees, most of the trees died, but humans can still breathe. I don't know what I was reading, but they do explain it much further on in the book that luckily there's enough algae in the water. I also saw that Anna Kendrick film, so you win this round, book. I'm sure someone in the comment section will have a go at me on why that's not right, but okay. Ginny only knows what someone programmed her to know. She has no idea what's waiting to be discovered. Out there, I point down an empty street. In the real world. Real world. Eat real food, not vegan muck. Get a real job, not this internet malarkey. She sounds like a boomer. She's just a boomer. What's the meme? Someone in the future sitting, listening to like a CD player, wearing Ugg boots, listening to Taylor Swift, being like, I was born in the wrong generation. Because that's Talia. That meme is this entire book. Talia has a online friend called Anoni Girl and her real life friend called Yaz. And I thought Yaz and Anoni Girl are the same person. That's my prediction apropos of nothing. Base apropos of nothing. I was wrong. Do you want a spoiler? Do you want to know who Anoni Girl, her online dinosaur friend, is, who helps her with hacking and stuff? It's her dad. Good one, mate. Good thing I'm wearing my One World Rugged Life microfiber boots. Yaz kicks up a heel as she steps onto the escalator. What's that? In iRobot, where Will Smith is like, what's he wearing? Converse but a specific year. They're perfect for it's such an obvious product placement in a film. They're perfect for a long flight of stairs, she says directly to her camera. You're not walking, I say, loud enough for the hover cam mic to pick up. She gives a fake laugh and tosses her hair, then runs up a few steps. Her dumbed down personal reality channel persona grates on me. She's smarter and more interesting than she appears from all the useless fashion chatter. But I get it. More viewers equals more products equal a better shot at a good corporate gig. It's a game, one that I'm hopeless at playing. Bet the author of this book hates YouTubers. Bet she's gonna hate this video. She plunks down on her side of the seat and docks her gizmo next to the big screen, then blinks into the eye to log on. Want to play a new game called Master of Minions Death Date with Hellfire? It's not as catchy as Raid Shadow Legends, is it? After a half hour of cruising games, scrolling through movie rooms, and my half-assed attempt at joining a virtual dialogue on, under the name Xerxes, about whether the letter X should... Oh, I hate this bit. Letter X should be eliminated from English, to which I quote, excising the letter X would exacerbate the inexorable extinction of text, but no one finds it funny except me. This main character has the sense of humour of a nuclear apocalypse. Used to be, you could pick up all the things in the store and weigh them in your hand, compare the different colours and shapes made by some hopeful person who had to guess what other people might actually want instead of having people decide exactly what they want before it's produced. How funny and upside down the world used to be. Wasteful, my mother would say. That's what led to all this trouble. Waste and inefficiency. We're not meant to like the mother for the majority of this book because she's not on Talia's side in the beginning. We're meant to like Talia's dad though because he's the cooler parent. But the mother isn't wrong here. The society that we have today is wasteful. It is fucking with the planet. What is this book trying to tell us? Talia ditches her friend to go explore some ruins and some rubble when she comes across this shop and there's a boy inside and he's different too because his tummy rumbles as well. I wish I was making this up. They have to drink Synthomil every day and every few months they get Enox. I guess that helps suppress the hormones and the drinks help. I don't know. I don't know. Don't give me that look. But there's a bit where Talia says her grandmother found it weird to adjust to not having to shit anymore because the digestive system just shut down. Now this girl has met a boy who also gets hungry. Inevitably, they're going to have food at some point. That's the point of this book. I already know with hindsight, but what I wrote here is inevitably they get some food. Does that mean that we're going to get a few paragraphs detailing their first bowel movement? Can the bowels work properly if they've never, this girl is about 17, never eaten before? Would it be a shit volcano? Cast your votes now. I know what happens. Prepare to be disappointed. Talia and the boy, whose name is Basil, bond over smelling food scents using some sort of contraption, that device that Basil has created, and then he gives her a note of a location for them to meet up with some other analogues. That's what they call themselves, people who also feel hungry. Analogues, Friday, 6 p.m, 1601 South Halstead. She complains it's too much information for anyone to be able to remember because relying on computers makes big brain dumb. But at the beginning of this book, she said that she has school classes, right? And her mum is a doctor. So surely there is a bunch of memorization that goes along with education and being her mum's not a doctor, sorry. I don't know why I wrote that. Her mum's a scientist. There's a lot of memorization that's going to go along with being a fucking scientist. So this book is irritating me. Do you ever wish you could see and smell food again? Talia, my mum whips around and blinks at me. What did you say? I asked if Papa Peter ever wished he could see and smell food. Mum and Grandma Grace exchanged looks. You know perfectly well that we don't do that, Mum tells me. I think about this for a second, then ask, why don't we? Mum is at loss for words, but Grandma Grace says, because it's unnecessary, not to mention illegal. Grandma Grace is the nasty grandma. Grandma Apple is the nice grandma. Illegal? Papa Peter's eyebrows lift up. Oh, but Papa Peter, who's I think is she married? Is he married to Grandma Grace? I can't tell. They all live together. It's like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. But Papa Peter's nice, you know, because most of the women in this book fucking suck because women bad, women big bad, technology big bad. I'm sensing some sort of undertone here. Papa Peter's eyebrows lift up, causing a line of wrinkles to march across his forehead. You sure? Of course it is, snaps Grandma Grace. Under the Universal Nutrition Protection Act, Mum adds. The young people call it forno, Grandma Grace says, and Papa Peter laughs. Forno, I ask. Food porno, Grandma Grace says. Mother! Mum protests, embarrassed. It's illegal to think of eating food because of food porn. I'd be arrested. Suddenly my stomach groans and gurgles. Papa's eyes open wide, he laughs. Well, I'll be darned, did you hear that? I just made this child's stomach growl, he looks at me. Let's try that again. He leans down close to my belly, lifts the bottom of my hoodie and t-shirt like I'm a little kid, and he's going to give me a belly blow. I try to protest, but it's hard not to laugh when Papa Peter is being such a goofball. Hello in there, he calls. How about a big plate of flaky, buttery biscuits and nice thick sausage gravy, or a pepperoni pizza with lots of melted mozzarella? Talia is 17, so I don't know why the granddad is acting as though she's 5 years old. Bet he gets bumped off as well and made into Soylent Green. The next morning, I head off to One World, Happy World, for my monthly interpersonal communication meeting. That sounds like a cult at all, does it? Oh, there's cults towards the end. It's great. 0 to 100, trust me. Stick with it. The beginning is a bit dry, but it really finds its pacing. Well, pacing's the wrong word, but it really finds something about 50 pages in. You know, my podcast host, mate, Rob, go check out the podcast. He said to me once that the film Aquaman, it's like the director or whoever wrote it wanted to tell 10 different stories and rolled it into one film. That's this book towards the end. Trust me, fam. Just stick with me. I worked out at this point what was annoying me with the book. It bangs you over the head with the overt future is bad, technology is bad, everyone is an inhuman robot now trope. It's not subtle or smart about it at all. Of course not, she mutters as she launches her hovercam. And you'll still score higher than the rest of us on the final. Tests are stupid, I say. Our protagonist is a genius without even trying. What a hero. I've never heard of a main character like that in any young adult fiction. Bet she reads Jane Austen books. My dad told me once that everything in a mall is thought out and has a purpose, I say. And do you know what that purpose is? Yaz looks at me with a blank face. The real question is, do I care? Her legend, that's me, about this book. It's to get people to spend more money. Duh, she says. I mean, look at this. The escalator forces you to pass by every floor. And since this building is circular and there are no solid walls in here, just windows and glass beams, you can see inside every shop. I point to the store for dolls, the one for toy trucks and cars, the one for dress-ups. Yaz sighs. I loved coming here when I was a kid. You know they're watching you, right? I ask. Who? One World marketeers. Again, I say, duh. How else are they going to know how consumers react? I mean, take Hedgie there. She points to yet another projection of the pink beast. One World marketeers. I'm shaking. This is so scary. What? Worst dystopia ever. There's this documentary called The Corporation, which is about how corporate entities can legally be defined as psychopaths because of the way they act. So you should, if you want some anti-corp stuff, watch that instead of reading this schlock. Since we're both girls the same age who live in the same loop, the algorithm ended up assigning us to the same group. As for the other 8 kids in our class, they're lame. And that's it. It just holds out on any details as to why they're lame, because the protagonist is a pick-me type of girl. Talia's stomach grumbles in the middle of her class and she's very embarrassed. Besides, I could use her help. Not everybody can post the best grades and have a mum and dad like yours and call the One World CEO Auntie Ahimsa. I need all the connections I can get. I frown at her. I don't use my parents' special connections I don't use my parents' connections to get special treatment. I know you don't, but you don't need to. And I know you think it's all fun and games how the dinosaurs trying to mess with the one world all the time, but most of us can't afford to do that. The main character's best mate is calling her privileged and to check it, and it's funny because this is a recurring theme that pops up. It's the one insult that a boomer's mind can't deal with and implodes upon hearing the same as the word Karen. Do you want to know a good example of a story based in a future where capitalism has gone completely bonkers? The Outer Worlds. Yes, it's a game, but it really captures the essence of just corporations owning people, just completely out of control. It's funny, it's smart, it's satirical. The main bad guys of the board are a bit, cartoon villain-esque, but playing that for 40 hours is better than reading this for 5 hours. At this point, it had been several weeks since I'd even looked at the book. I got back to this a few days ago, so I picked up where I left off. I don't know, do you think two people could be destined to meet and fall in love? As soon as I say it, we both laugh out loud. She'd met this boy, Basil, once, and she just completely obsesses over him, thinks she's in love with him straight away. They're a terrible fucking couple. That's just a spoiler alert. Bella Swan took more time to be in love with Edward Cullen than this girl has taken to be in love with... Stop being so needy. She tells her best friend all about Basil, then she yells for some reason and then goes home. Her family is at home with the family best friend, Ahimsa, who is described as... She is poised and elegant with long, graceful arms, a beaky nose. Can someone have graceful arms? Hands? Sure, I can imagine, not mine. But I can imagine someone has graceful hands. We express ourselves a lot with our hands. And I can imagine someone with a graceful gait, gracefully walking around. Totally. But graceful arms, all I'm imagining is someone, I don't want to hit myself, just imagine someone just walking around windmilling. Like, if I'm going to do this, if you walk into it and get a hit, it's your own fault. Like in The Simpsons.
If you get hit, it's your own fault.
The family friend, Ahimsa, describes Talia as a gifted child. Snore. Change the channel, young adult book authors. Her dad unveils a new one-world gizmo, which has the nanotechnology of invisibility cloaking. Yeah, we've gone a bit Harry Potter with this too. We embedded tiny crystal molecules like hinged shingles across the surface. On one side they absorb light and microwaves so you can see the object, but when you flip them, those nanoparticles cancel the electron scattering. In other words, it bends the light around the object so your brain thinks it's not there. I don't know how scientifically literate that is, but I liked it. Well, I didn't hate it. I don't know, like's a strong word. I didn't hate it and I didn't dislike it. I thought that's the only interesting thing I've read so far. And then it's ruined by the granddad saying, "Say what now? I'll never understand." Okay, granddad, time to go back to bed. It's not a hard concept to wrap your head around. It's like that overused trope in any film where a scientist says stuff and then some sort of military official hardhead type is like, "Oh, okay, Brainiac, can someone else say it again in English?" You're like, snore. Talia is having more hunger issues, so she decides to try to look up Basil online but can't find any hints that he exists, which is odd because in this world everyone's online, right? Maybe he was a hallucination all along brought upon by lifelong starvation. Talia finds some sort of mutation in her own genome sequence, which is causing her body to give out hunger signals. Her mother takes her to a specialist to see what's going on, and the doctor thinks that some CBT should cure the issue. He proposes to put her in rehab for a month. Talia argues with her doctor and her mother and the doctor. The mum threatens to force her to go because the mum is a bitch or something and not just, I don't know, someone worried about her daughter getting malnourished and dying. They decide on Talia being outpatient and they go home and yell more. "No," says mum, "it's not okay. Dr. Demeter said." "I'm not his patient until Monday morning," I remind her. She starts to argue with me, but dad squeezes her thigh and says, "It's okay, honey, you should go." "Max," mum shouts, "you're completely undermining me." "I think you both need some space from one another," dad says calmly. He turns back to me. "Don't stay out too late." The dad is cool, but the mum is the worst. Never seen that before in media. Talia goes out and meets up with Basil and the analogues. She takes her new gizmo, which I foresaw being a potential problem. What if it's actually spying on her? This protagonist is a dipshit. The fresh water on one side of us still has enough algae to keep oxygen in our air. She meets up with Basil in the outer loops. So she's privileged and lives inside the inner loops, which is where the rich kids live. And the outer loops is where it's more derelict. I don't know why it's called loops either. She squeaks for a bit. That'd be a good idea, I say like an idiot. I command the door to open, then tell the Smarto to go park. But when I look around, I notice that no one else who is going into the building is coming out of a Smarto. That's her smart car. Where are all the other cars? Basil looks at me out the corner of his eye and sort of smirks. Not everybody has their own automated transportation device, Apple. There are other ways of... Her name's Talia Apple, that's why he's calling her Apple. Talia is so privileged that she doesn't even know it. Boomer. Security, he says. I almost laugh. Against what? The wrong element. Titanium, helium, or the dreaded sodium? I hate that means saying this out loud. He barks a surprised laugh. Was that a chemistry joke? Yes, I say, my heart soars. Hardly anyone ever gets my nerdy sense of humour. Tee, I'm not like the other girls. Sounds like you've been hanging around with the wrong crowd, he tells me. Understatement, I say, and he laughs. This is a match made in hell. We walk around the perimeter of the room, and I put my finger on what's so strange but compelling about this place. Look, I say, pointing at a group of people. Everybody's talking to one another. If we were any place else, they'd all be murmuring to their screens. That's why we don't allow gizmos here. I stop myself from gaping at this information and blurting out, you mean no one here has a gizmo? Instead, I slip my hand in my pouch and cloak mine. Fucking idiot. A SWAT team is going to burst in any moment and shoot everyone first, then arrest everyone later. If she's so anti-capitalist, anti-corporation, paranoid about her privacy, why has she taken this gizmo thing with her, which it tracks your location, probably listening it? She could have just left it in her car. I said here, if the gizmo does turn out to get everyone in trouble, I'll be irritated because it's such a preventable problem. It's not exactly what happens, but... So they watch some sort of show, and a woman called Radish does an interpretive dance, and a man called Kumquat plays a guitar. I've had enough. Some woman called Anna appears. Everyone remains absolutely still and silent as a tall woman with flowing brown hair enters the room from a side door. The sun has sunk lower into the sky, bathing the room in golden light. The woman appears Gossamer in her emerald green garment, embroidered with intricate designs of extinct life forms, both animals and plants. She radiates a broad smile towards her admirers, some of whom seem nearly overwhelmed. As she... what does that even mean? As she walks by the chairs, she squeezes people's hands and stares into their faces but never speaks, then moves on. So she's an elf. Talia here is describing an elf. There's a bit where they all sit in silence, then some people cry. Then people start touching each other, but not in that way, you perverts. Then Anna the elf says, we are drawn together by energy, forever united by the ingenuity of the greatest invention ever made, the human being. You arrogant little shit! Right? What? Humans, oh, greatest invention ever made. What? Humans in this reality where war ruined the planet, killed all the plants and trees and bumblebees and whatever else, and people are having to... There's no point arguing with the book. The way the elf lady talks was annoying me, so it got me distracted. And I thought, surely not every tree and blade of grass has gone from this earth. How is that possible? Well, let's keep reading. And when that creature later sprouted wings, she didn't think to herself, wow, I should really get rid of these wings. No, she soared into the sky. Anna spreads her arms wide and spins. We must accept the slow and subtle shifts nature confers on the lucky few so that they can find ways for all of us to soar. She steadies herself but keeps her arms open. Because, my friends, we're standing on the edge of a precipice, she teeters on her tiptoes, ready to plummet towards our demise if we don't embrace the changes in our midst. Why is she spinning around? I hate this elf lady. The elf lady dramatically takes out a tin and eats something. None of this is resolved, by the way. Where did she get this tin? How did she get it? What's inside it? It sounds, because they say like thin, brown, it sounds a bit like maybe it's like a thin bit of chocolate. Where did that come from? In this bullshit. Then an old man called Spinach says she's under arrest. Basil runs away, almost leaving Talia. What a dreamboat. They run out of a side door, luckily. They get into Talia's car. Basil says Spinach has been in Anna's trusted inner circle for years. How illegal can that be? Why didn't more people leave? It's not illegal to go to a meeting, but they're just going to stay there and let those one world goons question them because a bunch of secret agents come out of nowhere. They're afraid, Basil says. Of what? I ask with a snort. You have no idea how strict the no food laws are, do you? No food laws? Ever heard of the Universal Nutrition Protection Act? Both of Talia's parents, well, Talia's mum is like the leading one-world scientist, and Talia's dad is like the leading cybernet security chief person, and yet she is so ignorant. Everyone else says, oh, she's so gifted and smart and blah, 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 and yet she's so fucking ignorant. Go away. Talia wants Basil to come inside her house because she's stupid. She can't see that her mum, of all people, would get hella mad. Who's this random boy that you've just brought back, and why is he clearly not like her? Her mum, who just a few hours ago was gagging to put her in rehab, and would do if she found out she was in the outer loops hanging out with other hungry people. Talia and Basil go into the house where her mum and grandma are watching a news stream of the analog bust that just happened with Anna getting arrested. And Talia says out loud, oh my god, we were just there. Holy forced plot point, Batman. Who the fuck would say that in front of like their crazy mum and crazy grandma, the mum who wants to chuck them in? Who would be that careless and stupid unless described by everyone else as, you know, independent, intelligent, gifted, special? Absolute dipshit. In a world where food is illegal, with parents who are forefront leaders in anti-food experimentation, the mother who's already established as a bitch from, you know, Talia's end, who wants to put Talia in a lab to be like poked and prodded at. Talia is a moron. That bit was so forced just to move the plot along into the direction that the author wanted it to go. I was complaining about this heavily to my podcast host, Rob, and he said, I sure hope my inner turmoil and secrets are not revealed to someone inappropriate. Oh no, have I said this out loud in company? How will this affect the plot? I mean, my life. So the mum flips out, threatens to call security on Basil for involving Talia in conspiracies against one world. Kids these days not reading in 1984 and understanding the importance of subterfuge. Interesting fact, when I was reading this book, I kept getting distracted and bored, and I kept Googling books that were better to read, like 1984 or even Fahrenheit 451, or there was a few others that I was Googling because I just got bored of how annoying the cat. She sets out in the beginning that she's paranoid of one world. She knows the marketers and secret agents that are looking out, you know, one world domination, one world marketers. She uses a VPN. It's established that she specifically uses VPNs as she knows how to protect her anonymity online. And yet, in this story, and there's more and more to it, she's constantly giving away information, her location. We'll get to it. And these idiots are meant to be the heroes of the resistance. Good fucking luck to them. The mother said, Talia, none of what you're feeling is real. The hunger and the want for this boy, these things that you think you're feeling are just chemicals in your brain. But if you want to be a reductionist, isn't everything we feel just chemicals and reactions on our brain? So what's your point, Mrs. Smart Mum Scientist Lady? Don't make it less real, does it? It's still like a feeling that you're experiencing, whether it's based on some scientist you are. Basil runs away, which is twice now, so that makes him a coward. And the mum says she's going to throw Talia in rehab. They check her gizmo location. It reveals she was at the meeting that just got busted. Oh no, if only there was any way to prevent all of this. Why didn't he take me with him? For a moment I wonder if my mum was right. Was he using me? I wish I knew how to get in touch with him so I could apologise and tell him that had I known my mother would act like this, I would never have brought him to my house. I pressed my forehead against the window. For his sake, I hope we never see each other again. She spent the whole story so far complaining about her mum. But she couldn't foresee the consequences of bringing someone like Basil home to her mum. And everyone in this story has the absolute audacity to pretend this main character is intelligent. Fuck off. So she gets taken to rehab. And another thing that gets me, I know she's 17, so she's still under the jurisdiction of her parents, but she was pretending to be so anti-authority, but complies with her mother every step of the way. The mum doesn't like literally throw in the car and force her to go. She could have at least tried to do a runner, tried to like jump out the window, run off up the street, sneak out, say I'm going to the bathroom. Could have at least done a little bit of that. No. It would make for a more compelling story to have her at least try But instead we have a character superficially opposing authority and caving and complying at the first sign of actual trouble. Wimp. 17-year-old privileged brat boomer simp wimp. For me, I just walked off and like, see you later, mum. Get out my mum, you're shorter than me. She pushed her out the way and walked out the door. See you later, adios amigos. The doctor shows her around and then, guess, I say, that's quite the euphemism. Dr. Demeter actually laughs at my smart-ass comment. She thinks it's very modest. What would you have me call them, he asks. Inmates? Well, I stutter, surprised by his sense of humour. Humble teenager experiences Sonder and realises that other people are human beings too. More news at 7. He glances at me sideways. I hear Mrs. Guignon had a bite to eat. This catches me off guard and I nearly laugh. Maybe she needs to be your guest. You know, he says almost absent-mindedly. She may be onto something. Humans are meant to eat after all. Too bad there's no food, I say. He turns his head sharply. And what if there were? Would you eat it? I, at this point, couldn't believe that I'm reading a story where the revolutionary main plot point is that humans probably should eat some food. Also, I bet this doctor is secretly sympathetic or something, I don't know. I was right about that. You can't fucking trick me, young adult authors. Ha! I'm smarter than a teenager! Good for me. My leg is hurting a bit, so let's do it. Let's just zoom in. I watch the people in the room, but nobody seems to be creating anything. Most of them stare blankly at the wall or rock back and forth, humming or muttering to themselves. One guy punches himself in the forehead over and over. Not to be that person, but surely someone should do something about the man hitting himself over and over? No? Help, maybe? Okay. Talia meets some other impatients called Hazza and Zara. Hazza says the doctor will take her to the lab, secret society club tings. Only the most special people get invited, Hazza continues, the ones he trusts the most. He's probably going to try to screw you, Zara says, slamming her fist onto her collage. My mouth drops open. I look at the boy to see if he's surprised by this, but he's too busy popping the small wads of paper in his mouth to notice what's happening across the table. He looks side to side as he chews. You're crass and foul and disgusting, Hazza snarls at Zara. What happens up there is a secret. A wonderful, beautiful secret. Sounds like screwing to me, Zara says and pounds a slab of black on top of her palimpsest, whatever that is. Finally, someone who sounds like a relatable person. That's not true, Hazza says, and Dr. Demeter says he has a place for me, a place where only the most special guests get to go to soon. Soon, I'll be part of the harvest. This catches my attention. Harvest? Zara looks at me and rolls her eyes. Don't listen to her, she's deluded. I am not, Hazza almost yells. My eggs are ripe. He told me so. Zara bursts out laughing. Your eggs are ripe, you really are insane. What in the trad thought am I reading? So Talia's in rehab. She tries to find signal on her gizmo. Remember, as the, invisibility cloaking thing, so it's not being confiscated. She finds a room where Hazza is in a hospital gown on a table waiting for someone. Sounds like the doctor is a bit of a nonce. Talia runs out the room and runs into Basil somehow. They escape with the help of an orderly called Ravi. I feel like order of events in a lot of young adult fiction is just so rushed. She's been in rehab for a few hours and she's rescued by a boy that she met a week ago. What's even the point? Basil hands Ravi the gizmo. Thanks, he says, I owe you. Nah, Ravi tells him, now we're even. They grab hands and bump shoulders before Ravi steps into the building. Be safe, he says, then looks over his shoulder at me. An apple, I stare at him. Thank you for getting him out of the meeting safely. He's important. But of course, our super special protagonist is in love with someone else who is also super special. This is so derivative of every young adult dystopian fiction ever that I'm going to vomit. They escaped so easily. This is a dystopian future where it's just technology, megacorp overlords, and yet there's no CCTV inside this rehab apparently, so I guess that plot point just wasn't convenient at the time of this writing. This way, Basil leads me inside the skeleton of a building. I have a vehicle. Giant robotic construction machines loom like replicas of dinosaurs in the darkness around us. You're going to fire at one of these? I ask. That'd be inconspicuous, he says, as he disappears behind a half wall and returns pushing some contraption that looks like half a bicycle. Instead of a front wheel, there's a big metal cage thing on casters. So they take a bicycle that has a shopping cart attached to the front of it to escape from rehab. As if no one's going to notice that Talia is sitting inside the front of a shopping cart as Basil slowly pedals away. So Basil actually hid outside of Talia's house and overheard her mum saying that she was going to take her to rehab. And then he organised a quick rescue with Ravi, who works there, who is also an analog, because that's pretty easy. There's no build-up, there's no tension, no time for it to truly sink in. There's no time for Talia to sit and stew and think about how precarious her future is looking and her actions. No introspection. Everything just happens like duh. It's rushed plot points, as if the author is rushing through the book to then forget that this book ever existed. Putting aside Stephen King's obsession with describing tits in books, he does know, this is why I like him, he knows how to properly pace his stories. And the pacing in this gets worse, so don't come at me yet. No, he says, I just thought you were some really cute girl named Apple that I was trying to impress. My stomach zings when he says this, blood rushes to my cheeks, and despite everything I smile. And to be honest, if I had known who your parents are, I would never have invited you to an analog meeting. He looks up and laughs, as if he can't believe all that's happened. The whole idea of a privy at a resistance meeting is absurd. Privy, I ask, that's what people like me call privileged people like you, Basil says, a note of apology in his voice. Even her romantic interest thinks she's privileged and needs to check it. They speed, off in the bicycle contraption. Yaz cool, everyone starts yelling. It's very irritating to read. Basil and Talia have a fight and then kiss. Spoiler alert, this is what they do all the fucking time. Like, they're such a toxic fucking couple. They decide to go and meet Yaz in a populated area, the entertainment arena, where all the kids go to hang out and have like all the entertainment and dopamine and all that shit. So they decide that's going to be get brain dead. And then they see holographic billboards of Talia's face saying missing person alert, because, well, this MC might as well be brain dead, as I just said. Yes, of course, gifted one. Be daughter of one of the most important, the most important scientist in society. So highly publicized, like public figure, be the daughter, go to rehab, escape after a few hours, and then immediately go to a populated area. What could possibly go fucking wrong? Some security agents chase after them, and then Yaz join them. It's a very incoherent chase, to be honest. It's a bit, it's one of those. This is one of those stories where you read the words, but it's hard to visualize. Behind me, faint footsteps echo towards the door. I turn and leap in front of the Smarto coming down the ramp and wave my arms at its anti-collision sensor. The car sharply turns and rams sideways into the door, jamming it shut. The car's airbags deploy while the security goons yell from the other side. As I'm running away, I hear a human voice come over the speakers inside the car. Is anyone injured? The automated Smarto voice answers, no persons are on the board. The human voice commands power off and the Smarto complies. The smart car has an anti-collision sensor, but it collides into a door anyway. And before Talia can have any real consequences to her actions, it's revealed that there's no one in the car. Why was it driving around then? How convenient is what I did. But maybe it turns out to be a girl's car, so maybe she might have called it to pick her up from the entertainment centre. So, I'll eat humble pie on that one. Maybe I was wrong about that. I was just being snarky for the sake of it. And for that, I'm sorry, but not sorry about anything else so far. They head to the outer loops to find a guy who can change their appearance, but they use public transport. Oh, the horror, the dread. The bus drivers, taxi drivers, it's unclear because the prose in this book is non-existent, so I don't know if they were describing buses. It sounds like taxis. It does sound like taxis, but it's just... Okay. I like Anna Karenina, the novel, but I have previously made fun of it for the descriptions, like the really long descriptions of things like the racing horses. But at least with Anna Karenina, I knew what the horses looked like, how many hands wide they were, how fast they went. At least I knew that and can visualize it properly with the long descriptions. The drivers automatically judge Talia and Yaz for being privileged. These cars work on combustible fuel used by fermenting a plant called kudzu. So plants do still exist, except the elites don't know about it inexplicably because no one talks to each other. This says a lot about society. Talia is hungry, so Basil buys some Synthemil from the taxi driver, which she got on the black market, and Talia complains it's not calibrated to her needs properly. It's okay, it has all the basic nutrients one world uses for everyone, he tells me. Yours starts like this, then gets personalised because your parents pay for it. Oh, I say, feeling stupid. I had no idea how it worked. She doesn't know much about how many things work, this MC. I sit back and brace myself for my second trip out of the inner loops in one night. This is what the pacing of so many young adult books are fucked. The pacing in this is fucked. The pacing in House of Night was just, it was ridiculous, because it's like, you expect me to believe that so much has happened in the space of like a day. In one night, she went to a meeting in the evening, almost got busted, got sent to rehab, stayed there for a few hours, got broken up by Basil, went to the entertainment arena, fucked around there, had like a chase with security guards, escaped with Yaz and Basil in a car, and now they're leaving the city yet again, all in the space of one evening. Go away. They get to a salon. I don't know. I had to Google it, like salon. It doesn't mean spa and salon. I don't know. Who knows? There's some exposition where it explains that everyone has to sign a contract that only one world can provide them nutritional drinks. Failure to comply with the law or seek nutrition outside of one world is a breach of contract and can result in jail time or being starved to death. Also, if you accidentally have a second child illegally, because there's one child policy for most people, unless it can be proved that you can afford to take care of a second child, they don't get the drinks either, because it's a one child policy. So the second child like either starves to death or the parents have to make it work somehow. Talia, whilst on the run and people are looking for her, decides to ring her parents because she is just asking to be arrested at this point. To be fair, she only wants to speak to her dad, but obviously like he calls both of them are concerned, so he calls the mum over because obviously he's going to do that. And Talia doesn't just hang up because she's an idiot. The mum immediately starts yelling. Talia is just so selfish. Yeah, selfish and sheltered. You're right, says Dad, which stops me. There's so much more to this world than you likely know. We've probably sheltered you too much. That's what I just said. We only did it because the truths are ugly and no one wants to relive them. Your grandparents, your mother and I worked very hard to make a world we wish we had when we were your age. A place that's safe from war and starvation, all the other horrible things human beings are capable of when resources are scarce. You can say what you want about one world, Mum says, pushing Dad aside. But at the end of the day, we're keeping everybody alive. And as a privileged person on this earth, you have an obligation to contribute to that system. At this point, I thought, oh, shut up, fuck off. But that's because I don't like it when anyone tells me to do anything. If anyone ever says to me, you need to do this or you should like do this, no, that's the anti-authoritarian side of me that's like, nah, fuck off, authority figure. Nah, don't tell me what to do. I don't need to do anything. I just need to stay alive. I don't consent to being here. Goodbye, I say. Before I disconnect, I hear my mother roar, find her, Max. I can't, Dad says. I kill the video but keep the audio connection and press my ear against the speaker again. She figured out how to block the locator. For God's sake, you're the head of One World Programming and the security chief officer. Find a way in, my mother insists. Search the video feed, Ahisma tells him. There's bound to be a landmark or a clue. Quickly I end the call and run for Theo's door, knowing it's only a matter of time before we're traced. They get their skin tone, eyes, and hair colour change. Talia posts some stuff on a dinosaur message board, says that they are going to get the analogues organised and then head to the prison where Anna is currently being held. Remember that elf lady? But to do what exactly? Just get arrested anyway. Clearly, like these protagonists are inept. Basil chuckles into the quiet night. I don't even know what to make of you, Apple. You're not like anyone I've ever met. A privy, but it seems like you might get it. Oh, high fucking praise from your love interest. I think that you're a total, like, I was going to say a total Tory snob. Essentially, I think that you're the way. You're what's wrong with society, but you might get it. Swoon, what a dreamboat. They steal a motorbike from a drug dealer. Someone shoots a gun. And Talia somehow manages to drive the motorbike away, even though she's been using a smart car for her whole life. It's not like this is a smart bike. I think it sounds like it's an old style, our present day type motorbike. Yeah, this girl who's very sheltered manages to use a motorbike with Basil on the back because he's been shot at. I can't suspend my disbelief this much. Not even as if I am the be all end all. I can't ride a motorbike. It's difficult to get used to. I can drive a car and I had a moped, but even I can't use and you're expecting me to believe that this stupid girl, the shot from the gun hit Basil's arm, so Talia tries to dress the wound. We need to take off the long sleeve shirt too. I move around to the front and begin undoing the buttons, which makes me blush furiously. As Yaz says, this is a lot of interpersonal touching. I breathe deeply to keep my hands steady and focus on the task rather than thinking about being so close to Basil's body. What happens next? How are you so horny that you can even think of that when your almost boyfriend's arm is just like gushing blood everywhere? I know nothing gets me going more than torn up skin and open wounds. Yummo. I ask. Basil doesn't answer, so I refocus on slicing his shirt open. His newly pale skin faintly glimmers. Edward Cullen, is that you? I can see that he is lean and muscular and gorgeous in the hazy light, like something from a dream that disappears the moment you wake. With my eyes, I trace a path of hair. I'd hope with your eyes. How else are you going to see? What does that even mean? With my eyes? With my eyes, I looked at him, as opposed to what? Your fucking mouth. I trace a path of hair that marches from his belly button into the waistband of his pants. Then I notice just above his right hip a smudge of ink. I lean closer and squint until I can see a sprouted seed and the words "remember" tattooed on his skin. I reach out to touch it and feel the warmth of his skin beneath my fingers. I have so many questions. Excuse me, Talia, but your boyfriend is kind of bleeding profusely, so can you save the slobbering for later? Luckily for our protagonist, the bullet just grazed Basil. So there'll be no consequences for anyone's actions today, because wouldn't that suck? And we're still on the same day/night of the analog meeting, by the way. Like, they've had their skin changed, and I'm pretty sure they might have even had a nap, but we're still on the same night. Talia dresses the wound and then decides they should go see her grandfather to get it checked out properly. And I said, I don't want to. I don't want them to go back to the inner loop so they can see her grandfather, then loudly say something stupid and almost get caught by the nasty grandmother and then have to run away from agents again. What the fuck is the point of going in and out the loops? Just stay on the outside and go to the wasteland and find some plants or something, for fuck's sake, go away. But luckily, they can't pass through the toll booth, so phew. Guess they have to stay in the outer loops for longer. This protagonist is stupid. Everywhere in the inner loops is on high alert, and whilst her appearance looks completely different, she's so stupid she would have them both ratted out the moment she opens her mouth. Had enough, all in capitals. They go to a fuel station to try to get a pass, like an illegal black market pass for the toll booth, but the motorbike has been reported as stolen, so then they have a fight with the store worker. Then they see the taxi driver from last night, so quickly go with her and explain what's up. Talia hurts her ankle in the process. Basil's real name isn't Basil, it's Eli. Wow, I don't care. A protest is happening outside the prison that Anna is being held captive in. Talia falls asleep and wakes up in a random hospital. She gets her ankle fixed up. A nurse tells her how hungry people keep coming into the clinic and with their stomachs full of weird things they've eaten, like dirt. The clinic is free because they have a benefactor who is definitely Talia's grandfather. The same one that she wants to see to check out Basil's arm. Talia is full of homesickness after not being home for less than a whopping 24 hours. Snowflake generation, in my day I'll write this all in capitals. Snowflake generation, in my day we left home at 5 years old to work at a coal mine and only saw our families at Christmas and funerals. Get a grip. Anyway, she leaves the clinic, gets Basil, they go outside and they're accosted by pollution. Imagine it like the gas cloud that hangs over the Sierra Madre in New Vegas, just waiting any second now for ghost people to attack these two. A group of men and women passed around kudzars and bottles filled with liquid that's too clear to be synthemil. If alcohol still exists in this world, I'm assuming it's alcohol, would people who drink it get super drunk after one drink on account of having no food to line their stomachs? Asking the real questions here. Talia finally checks her privilege. She comes face to face with the abject poverty Basil has grown up with when they go to his childhood home. They find his mum in a drugged up stupor. And I'm confused because I thought kudzars are like weed, right? And I'm pretty sure it's made with this kudzu stuff. But then I googled, I have to read because it comes up quite a lot. Kudzu seems to be some type of like vine weed. Not as in, I don't know. I don't know. But I'm assuming kuzu, they're making the kudzars out of kuzu. I thought kudzars were weed because they had been described at one point as you smoke it and it makes you feel funny or feel nice, whatever. But the mum calls them ciggies and gets them from a pack. So I don't know, maybe is it just nicotine that's really strong? Is it like kind of marijuana but you can buy it in a pack of 20? Like a pack of Benson and Hedges? I don't know. Give me some of the world building more about the drug aspect of this. If You smoke one of these kudzars, like, how would that not, if it's an equivalent of weed, how is that not giving you the munchies? How are you going to deal with the munchies? Just drink loads of Synfamil? I don't know. These are the questions that Swain didn't answer in this story. The mum is fine with them both for all of 2 seconds, and then she just starts yelling that both of them are idiots and are going to end up in jail. All of the mums in this story are just unhinged. The mums, the grandmums, apart from that, like, one grandmum who's alright. Basil's in a bad mood, probably because of his mum, but he decides to yell at Talia to make himself feel better. Maybe running away with someone that you've known for less than a week, literally met up with them once before this, isn't a good idea. I can picture you when you were little, I say with a half laugh, at the thought of a cute curly-haired kid digging through all this junk. I bet you created all the things you couldn't buy. The noble savage, he sneers. You should be an engineer, I tell him. He scowls at me. God, you really are clueless, aren't you? Yeah, and you're really patronised, but okay. I stumble backwards as if his words shoved me. What? I just meant you'd be good at it. You're really brilliant. The smells scanner, the transponder, the bicycle cart, the windmill pump. Don't you get it? I'm not like you, he says with a cold glare. But I suppose from your perch up there on the ladder to success, you can't see this far down. I blink away my surprise. What's that supposed to mean? He stomps his foot. ICMs, the right virtue schools, internships, family connections are all part of a big machine churning out the status quo and protecting the exalted few who'll never let someone like me elbow my way in. I can't be an engineer no matter how brilliant I am because there is no ladder for me to climb, but you got halfway to the top just by being born. This is something that he never gets over, by the way. He doesn't get over the fact that, yes, she's privileged, but she realises that she is, and then she wants to help, but then he holds it against her, like, just because she was born into... Do you know what I mean? She's, like... As the novel goes on, like, she's an idiot, but she does try to help in the way that she knows how. And yet he just keeps calling her a privy. So, true love, guys. I try to get a word in so he'll know that for the first time in my life I understand how unfair the world is, but Basil bulldozes right over me. When one world gobbled up the entire nutritional market, then one by one snatched every other enterprise and bought off all the politicians, they killed any chance that someone like me could ever make it out of this mess. The best I can hope for is a menial job fixing what's broken in a system that couldn't care less whether I live or die, a loser just like my dad. You're not a loser, I argue, but I'm angry at him for screaming at me. So I add, and don't get mad at me about the system, I didn't make it, but at least you profit from it, he snaps. What was I thinking, getting involved with a privy? Why are you screaming at me? I shout at him. I don't deserve this. Then go back home, he shouts. His words sting. You know, by the way, this came out of nowhere. Well, he was just... it didn't come out of nowhere. He is taking out his frustration from his mum's state onto Talia. And he says as much in a few pages. I'm not just imagining things. You don't mean that. Yes, I do, he says calmly and clearly. I search his face, trying to find that boy who filled me with so much emotion that I grabbed his hand and ran away. But he looks at me blankly with unfamiliar icy blue eyes as if he doesn't know me. Basil, I take a step towards him, but he turns, throws open a door, and stomps up a sagging staircase to the second floor. Fine, I yell after him, wondering if I ever really knew him before this moment. Maybe I will go back. Fine, he yells down at me, then go. She hangs around the house for a bit, hoping that he's going to apologise, because who fucking needs self-respect when you're in love in a young adult novel? And then she finally leaves to go back to the clinic. She checks her gizmo. She sees that a nonny gal, her dad, has messaged her directly and sent her a link to crack the new Gizmo OS. And I said here, bet it's Yaz. I don't know where the novel tricked me, right? It got one over me because I didn't think it would be her father. But anyway. So someone on the TV says that One World Security confirmed the identity of the hacker, Hector Protector, as Talia Apple. Serves her right for that dumb Elias anyway. She gets called an anti-corporate terrorist. Yaz appears on the news to damn Talia as well. The news know everything Talia has been up to, so she tries to go back to Basil to warn him. She sees him, he says sorry, then they get chased by men being directed by Basil's mum because there's some sort of, there's a monetary reward on the news to catch those two. So the mum's like, yes, now I can get more kudzar. They go to a place where loads of dirt eaters live. That's what the people affectionately called. The ones who have been driven crazy by the hunger. Dirt eaters. Talia sees Zara from Rehab, but then they almost get caught by men, so they run away again, and this is tiring to read. They hide. Yaz texts Talia to tell her it's all lies. They edited the news footage. Thank goodness for that. Otherwise, Talia might have to feel more than a paragraph's worth of turmoil, and that simply wouldn't do. Anna, the elf woman, is dead. Probably. It's already been established that they can't trust the news, so I don't know why they immediately trust this article, but okay. So basically, apparently, Anna hadn't been imbibing her Synfamils properly, and she was malnourished, and then when they tried to put like some slight type of nutritional drink in her, she had an allergic reaction and died. though people are theorising, no, they killed her to try to stop the protests. That's never resolved. I did think, she'll make a comeback, she'll come back. No. She dies. Off screen, dies. Never really resolved. One World decides to stop giving out drink supplements to certain areas until everyone calms down, effectively starving people. Talia stands at a bin and yells to incite a crowd to take back the distribution centre of Synfamil in that area that she's in the Outer Loops. Talia live streams this riot and then puts the attention on herself for reasons only the plot knows. So now the security agents knows her location and her new look. They steal a car and they drive off. Then they have a car crash. The book is just non-stop action at this point, like zzz. They chat and have some exposition. Basil's older brother, Errol, died in a non-violent protest because an angry worker chucked some boxes out of a skyscraper or a building or something and one hit him on the head. Like in cartoons when pianos and giant anvils fall out the sky, except Errol died instantly. RIP. Probably the lucky one because he doesn't have to be in the story anymore. And then everyone began rioting because of the death. Basil goes to sleep and Talia checks online to see her stream has gone viral. All the dinosaurs are supporting her and organising more Synfamil takeovers. This plot point isn't really resolved. Yaz is on the message boards, tells Talia her family is worried about her and her dad helped Yaz get out of One World custody. I hesitate. The truth is I don't know where I am, but I also can't be sure this is really Yaz or if it is that I can trust her. Behind me, Basil stirs. Apple, he says. Finally, Talia has learned to actually be suspicious and paranoid. Character development at last. The revolution is not an apple that falls when it is ripe. You have to make it fall. Che Guevara. This part of the book opens up with a quote from Che Guevara, which is pretty bold. They wake up in the car in the middle of a flash flood. At this point, it's as though the author has written down a series of bad situations to be in, put them on cards, shuffles the cards around, and then flips one every few pages. Even the characters are starting to notice how ridiculous it is. God damn it, I yell in frustration. I grab a handful of rocks and dirt and fling them at the unrelenting water surging downstream. How much more could we possibly go through? This is getting completely ridiculous. I pound my fists into the ground and fling more rocks and dirt against the air. I've been chased, I've been shot at, I've stolen a car, everyone knows I'm Hector Protector, and now this, a freaking flash flood. You've got to be kidding me. I don't even have pants anymore, I rant. I don't know if that gets resolved, her lack of pants, but okay. But at least they made it to a place called the Hinterlands, whatever the fuck that is. But everyone said, but. I stammer and stutter because I cannot believe what I'm seeing. This is nothing like the desolate wasteland I've always heard was beyond the loops. This isn't supposed to be here, I finally spit out. Basil looks at me and grins, but it is here. On tender feet, we step carefully through the thick tangle of vines with heart-shaped leaves. Gigantic shaggy green creatures populate the hillside like some long-forgotten zoo of extinct animals. Grandma and I used to play a game naming shapes in the clouds. Now I try to imagine what these beasts could... whatever. There's plants and foliage everywhere. Honestly, did no one just go for a really long walk outside of the Outer Loops at all in the past 50 years? These types of stories always rely on no one but the main character just travelling for a few days. They see something called Noah's Ark Carousel, which I googled and is in Portland, Oregon. Talia finds some red berries and I hope they are poisonous. But unfortunately, from the description of the berries, it sounds like they are raspberries and they eat some. So I'm sitting here hoping that we get some description of them shitting themselves in the next chapter. Talia is already talking about going back to the loops and telling everyone else about the berries and greeneries. Just stay still for 2 seconds, please. Just enjoy the moment. You've had food for the first time ever. Just live in it. Live in the moment for a little bit. And Talia is being as naive as ever, thinking that if they go back and tell the super capitalist corporation that has control by being the one source of nutritional resource for the populace, she thinks that if they go back and tell everyone, oh hey, like foods is this, we found berries, that the corporation won't just kill them. She really thinks that everyone at One World is just going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. The same corporation has already slandered her, painted her as a terrorist on citywide news so they can get their own way. They potentially killed Anna the elf Talia would either immediately be chucked in jail or just killed. So just like calm down for a second. Just stay in one place for a bit. Maybe have a farm, live peacefully for a year or two, eating raspberries. Okay, good. So now you're freaking out and sure that you're the only one who can save the rest of us. Just because you finally figured it out, Apple, doesn't mean we have to go back and get our asses kicked. We got out. We don't have to save the world. I agree with Basil here in this one bit, and I guarantee that wasn't the author's intention. I'm probably meant to disagree with Basil and still think of him as a wimp, but Talia looks like a naive child who has learned nothing in the face of everything that has been thrown at her on how evil the conglomerates can be in the pursuit of profit and monopoly over people. But Basil, I say, imploring him, we know something now that others don't. Before we can truly walk away, we have to tell everybody back there so they have this option of leaving too. That's the only way one world will be forced to change. He puts his hands to his hips and hangs his head. No, he says simply. But we have an obligation to use our knowledge to better the world. He looks up. Do you even hear yourself? He asks me. When I stare at him blankly, he shouts, you sound just like your mother. He should dump her and build a raspberry farm. She can go off home with her little messiah complex and just get shot or chucked in jail for conspiracy to diminish capital and profits, and he can sit around eating raspberries for the rest of his life. Another cluster of raspberries sparkles in the sun. I reach down and pluck a pink and white flower growing up from the earth. A real flower, not a hologram or a synth plant. It is the most beautiful, amazing thing I've ever seen. So delicate and intricate. I want to tell others about this so they can decide for themselves whether to stay in the loops or walk away. But the thing that Basil doesn't understand is that we don't have to go back to spread the word. I reach inside my pouch and pull out my gizmo, hoping it still works. Right, so maybe she could have fucking started by admitting she still has her gizmo and saying to Basil, we can let people know via this. Massive pet peeve of mine is I really hate conflict in stories that is so easily preventable or fixable just by people being honest with each other. I hate forced communication issues in stories, film, media. Pisses me off. Go away. She uploads a video of the great outer green world online. She calls her parents but gets intercepted by Ahimsa. Ahimsa is aware there's still life in foliage but doesn't believe it's enough to feed the remaining populations. You never were, I say. Why did you hijack my call with my parents? She half smiles. Anybody else who pulled the shenanigans you have would be dead by now. Her words send a sick ripple through my guts. See, how is that a revelation to Talia? How sheltered is she? Like, fucking just read 1984 or something. Good lord. Her parents get back on the call and her mum tells her to stay away from the inner loops because she's researching how to resolve the issue and wants Talia to remain safe. Worried that one world have found her and Basil, Talia drops her gizmo and runs away. Two men bend down, touching the ground where our bodies matted the green foliage. My heart pounds so loudly in my ears that I'm sure they will hear me. I count the people. 5, no 6, half are women. Some carry huge curved blades on poles slung over their shoulders. Others carry coarsely woven bags on their back. They're the strangest security agents I've ever seen, but I figure they are bounty hunters from the outer loop who've come to take us back alive. Back dead or alive. Yeah, that what we just heard totally sounds like One World agents. They catch Basil. Talia trails them for miles until they get to some sort of village. Talia still stupidly believes that they are One World agents, even though it's been hours with evidence to the contrary that these are just people living outside the loops. Even with the foreshadowing of Basil saying pages ago that other people have left the outer loops and never returned. Talia, get some Synfamil that increases your IQ, please. She falls asleep and people find her, saying Gaia will be thrilled. The leader is called Gaia. Fantastic. Basil is safe. Gaia gives Talia a hug and says, welcome home. She has a cold shower and then a pregnant girl shows her around. Which you, I ask, a farmer or a gatherer? Neither. She steals a sideways glance at me. I do domestic work for Gaia, cook, clean, whatever she needs. Over there is the pump house and the latrines. She points to 3 long, narrow buildings along the edge of the clearing. What's a latrine, I ask. For when you have to relieve yourself, she says. You mean pee? Yes, she says slowly. And for when you start to, defecate. Defecate? I rack my brains for the meaning of the word. Oh, I say when it finally dawns on me. Really? Basil cracks up. He laughs so hard his cheeks get flushed. At this point, I thought the time was getting closer for that toilet scene I was really looking forward to, but alas. They go to Gaia's house. She gets a whole house to herself, whilst everyone else has to share a hall and have all their fabrics recycled and stuff. Communism strikes again. They give Talia a kudzu broth so her digestive tract can learn to digest solid food properly. Gaia's face hardens. What law? Unpa, I say. The universal nutrition, the law of greed, she says bitterly, of corporate oppression dictated by the cult of money. No, thank you. Here we only follow the laws of Mother Nature. So they've, at this point in the story, they've left one cult and entered another. Unless you're very, very strong, like me. I could see through their lies. To me, the truth was as transparent as that pane of glass. She points to the large, deep-set window looking out into the lush kudzu forest. I know what they're up to, she says, hunching closer to us. And if I wanted to, I could destroy them. She slams her hands on the table, making our spoons jump as she shouts. At this point, I liked the crazy cult leader lady. Gaia stands up and walks behind our chairs. She lays a hand on each of our shoulders. But you two, against all odds, found each other. Star-crossed lovers, I think. She leans between us. Pyramus and Thisbe. Romeo and Juliet. Tristan and Isolde. Kathy and Heathcliff. She whispers these names from long-forgotten novels I've plucked off of Grandma's bookshelves. Gaia stands. Well, it didn't take some time to read fucking 1984, did you? Gaia stands and slowly circles the table. You two just might be the luckiest people in all the world. Who else could claim to fall in love naturally, then run away and end up here where you can live freely, loving whomever you choose, starting a family, being part of the new world that I've created on the farm? Who else? She answers her own question in a grave whisper. No one. It only took me getting 60% through the story, but I'm finally enjoying myself at this point because of this clearly mad woman. I'd really like to contact my family, I say quickly. They should know that I'm okay, and Gaia slowly turns. She stands over me and shakes her head. We're your family now, dear. So she's calling it a farm, and the doctor in the beginning, if you remember, also said something about eggs and a harvest and a farm. The doctor is going to visit the farm. I'm a genius, hello, and I was right. Basil is acting in love with Gaia. She can see into our hearts, he says, and now I think Talia should dump him instead of vice versa. Honestly, just dump everyone. That's always my advice. I don't even want kids, he says as he scrapes up the last bit of liquid from my bowl. This surprises me almost as much as Gaia saying we should start a family. Really? Never? And end up like my parents? Not all parents are bad, I tell him. Look at my family. Yeah, look at yours, Basil says with a snort. They stuck you in rehab, then put a price on my head. They argue, then a pregnant girl comes crashing in and Talia finds out she is 15 and this is her second pregnancy. They're in a cult. When she's gone through the double doors, I get off the floor and look at Basil. Now you can't tell me this place is normal, I say in a hushed shout. That girl is 15 and going on her second baby. Maybe that's what she wants, Basil says with an unconcerned shrug. Yeah, who doesn't want 2 babies when you're not even 16 yet? Shut up, Basil. No uterus, no opinion. Wow, not only did my battery run out the other day, so it's a whole new day, but just now I recorded 10 minutes of footage and the microphone wasn't fucking on. I should just retire. Yeah, this is all a sign from the universe, so I'm gonna repeat everything that I just said. I really hate repetition. There's a fact about me. Both these characters should just dump each other and get on with it. I'm weirdly enjoying this story at this part. Well, I was. In the morning, Talia goes to the toilet and sees some girls carrying some urine samples for Gaia. This feels like it could go down the fan theory of the club classic sleeper hit, the 1999 classic, The Matrix, where when they're in Zion, it's just another layer of Matrix on top of the Matrix they just escaped from. So this cult could be another one-world experiment. It's not, but it'd be a lot cooler if it was. She gets a job tallying up the urine samples. It's about as interesting as it sounds. Girls come in, jab themselves in the belly, and then they go out. Afterwards, Talia goes to cut some vines. Most of the girls are bitches to her. Who's this? Carrick asks, looking me up and down. I'm Talia. Fresh eggs, he announces, which makes the other guys laugh. What's that supposed to mean, I ask. Carrick leans in close and takes a hold of the pump handle. His eyes are dark and I can smell the musk of sweat coming off him. You hatching, girl? Great, somehow ultra-conservative YouTube found its way into this story. Cult. Talia goes to see Gaia to ask if she can contact her parents. Gaia has a tantrum, so she leaves, goes to find Basil, and Basil's annoyed at her as well. The drama, people suing me, I'm on TV talking like it's just you and me. Something's bothering me about this relationship. They bonded and got together over a mutual secret. Both of them are hungry and they ran away together without really knowing each other. And now they argue in literally every conversation they have. Why do a lot of young adult authors not think it's possible to have a relationship without it ending in an argument and someone stomping off? Every conversation, I mean, in the relationship. I read the Divergent series last winter and all I can really recall from that is Thor and Triss arguing every other conversation and stomping away from each other, but then proclaiming that they're actually deeply in love with each other. Bella constantly feels on eggshells around Edward and modifies her behaviour and speaking so as to not offend or annoy him like all the fucking time and fill him with chagrin, a lot of chagrin in that novel. Peter and Katniss, I don't really remember. They probably fall under this trope too. No, they probably don't. I can't remember. But if you're in a relationship and you're having serious arguments every fucking conversation with this person, just dump them. Just break up with them. There's billions of other people on this planet. Maybe not if you're in a dystopian post-apocalyptic world. Maybe there's only like probably a couple million. But still, that's a pretty big dating pool. So don't stay with someone if you're arguing all the time in every conversation. What is the point? Talia chases after a butterfly but falls over and then finds herself on some old man's property. What the hell did I just write? This old bloke knew of Talia's granddad because of course he did, so they make friends and that's that. Gaia gets mad at dinner that one of the pregnant ladies was complaining about her pregnancy because to be pregnant, it's a gift. So she publicly shames her, like admonishes her in public. Not a good thing to do. Not great to stress out pregnant women, right? Bit precarious that, oh, it's a gift. All right, or maybe don't fucking stress her out then, dipshit. However, as far as tyrannical cult leaders go, it's really not the worst thing I've ever read, so what am I meant to feel about this? Big whoop. The old man, who's called Mr. Clemens, tells Talia that he believes Canada is still full of wildlife and fertile. Gaia is on the warpath after Talia, so with the help of Gaia's assistant, Talia goes to Mr. Clemens' house. This all happens in less than 2 pages. Ooh, it's a lot. Mr. Clemens takes his pipe out of his mouth and jabs the smoking end at me. Tyrant is the right word, and liar and fraud. You're too young to know spit about the past, but if history is littered with people like her, Idi Amin, Pol Pot, Jim Jones, charismatic cult leaders who worm their way into desperate people's minds with lies disguised as promises. She claims she's created a self-sufficient settlement where folks are free to live like humans ought. Meanwhile, she's slipping Synfamil into the soup. What? Are you serious? Synfamil in the soup? I ask, not sure who's crazier, him or Gaia. Kudzu and corn and all the other meager crops she's been able to eke out the soil aren't enough to keep all those people healthy. It'll be years before that's possible around here. There'll be malnutrition out the wazoo if she wasn't supplementing everything. Well, what makes you think it's Synfamil? Because I know where she keeps her stash. He lets that sink in for a moment while he smokes. That doctor fellow of hers brings it, and they hide it in my old corn silo just north of here. I wasn't exactly right, but it basically kind of is another Matrix. Mr. Clemens says that if Talia can convince Ella, who is Gaia's assistant, who's also pregnant with her second kid, I think that's the one, to go with them, that they should all go to Canada, because he's got lots of seeds to farm with. A short, round girl with frizzy brown hair cautiously steps onto the stage. I squint at her because she looks vaguely familiar, but I can't place her until Gaia says, Hazza, meet your new family. I draw in a quick and unexpected breath as I try to puzzle through how Hazza has gotten from Dr. Demeter's rehab centre to this place. Talia is painfully slow for a supposedly gifted person. She's at the Harvest Festival where 12 girls have been chosen and put onto the stage, and now a bunch of guys are on the stage, including Basil, and the Doctor appears, who is obviously Dr. Demeter from the beginning of the story. There's been riots in the inner loops, and Gaia is taking credit for it. Everyone leaves and Talia sneaks around, and the girls are having their eggs taken away via the Doctor, and the boys are donating sperm. But I can't understand why there are so many children running around already. I know the people on my squad were having sex in the woods, and since they're ingesting arousatral in their Synfamil, they'll be fertile. Surely all the girls who are pregnant got that way naturally, so why would he need the lab? Ooh, a genuine mystery. Let's see how this pans out. Somehow Dr. Demeter recognises Talia, even though her face is different because she had that injection surgery thing. Different hair, all about convenient for the plot, I guess. Talia, he asks. Talia Apple. I recoil, trying to get away, but he pulls me closer. I should have known you'd make your way here. I realise then that he's hugging me. Of course. Had I known you were in the Resistance, I would have brought you here myself. He releases me in beams. I tried to drop hints when we were talking at my facility to see how far along you'd come in your thinking, but I wasn't quite sure you were ready. I've watched with great interest what you've accomplished in the loops, and now I find you here. Does Gaia know who you are? She hasn't mentioned a thing. I said at the beginning he was a spy or sympathetic or something like this. At this point, it felt like I'd been reading this forever. And then I say, I bet they are cannibals or something, because I thought, oh, maybe they're birthing maybe they're taking the eggs from the girls and like creating test tube babies and like growing them freakishly large really fast and then killing them and eating them. I wasn't totally far wrong. Real plants, real milk, real meat. He motions to the table. We will dominate the market and become the sole supplier of nutrition in the New World Order. New World Order, really not very subtle here. Ah, he says with a smile, there's still one. My stomach rolls over as the pieces come together. Human milk? I whisper and he nods. I remember the topless woman in the pump house, the buckets of strange whitish water, the sweet tea, the talk of cheese. And this, I ask, this is the meat? I point to the dishes on the table. Hear me out. Human milk, breast milk, is much more natural for humans to drink than the milk of other species. So I don't know why this is meant to be shocking. Don't you see? No one is harmed. I grow the embryonic stem cell lines from what we harvest here and create sheets of muscle fibre, which we can stack into a hearty protein source. I think your mother will be very interested in this. This might be an ick factor for a lot of people, but I'm super unfazed by this. Is this even a bad thing? The veganism is strong within me. Why not self-cannibalise on human stem cells instead? I'm going to take that one to Parliament and find out why we aren't doing that. Imagine like lab-grown human... Would you eat lab-grown human meat? Tastes like pork, apparently. Talia breaks into Gaia's office, which compared to the rest of the encampment is very modern, and with the help of Ella, she contacts her family. I said, oh, turns out the dad might be a nonny gal, lol, okay. Ahimsa intercepts the call as Gaia and Dr. Mita come into the office. It's all a big shit show, but Talia gets away and her parents come on a helicopter. The best bit of that was Ahimsa on the screen is saying to Dr. Demeter and Gaia, where are you? You're harbouring, the terrorist, the fugitive, Talia Apple. Forgot her name for a second. And we're going to come get her. And Gaia takes that to mean One World have found her, they've intercepted her, they're coming after her. And Ahimsa on the screen says, who are you? Like, literally, who are you? We just want Talia. It's very delusional. Reminds me of someone. Mr. Clemens meets up with them. So the parents have come on a helicopter. Literally 5 minutes later. The pacing of this book, ridiculous. Dr. Clemens, I think he comes in a Jeep, right? And then they all stand around in this field, the parents, him, what's her face, Talia, and they give each other exposition as if there isn't a crazy woman who wants to kill them. As if One World aren't sending their own helicopters right now to come get them. So the guys of the cult come back with rocket launchers because that's what they were building at the cult. The men were working on building rocket launchers and they shoot down the One World helicopters that are coming. It's just 0 to 100. Talia and Basil get split up from everyone else in the ruckus, but the father gives Talia a gizmo and then we're at an epilogue. Grandma Rebecca and Mr. Clements are playing Scrabble. Talia's family are chatting to each other. Oh wait, no, it's yet another fucking dream. There is a lot of dream sequences in this novel that I've just not bothered to recap because I've learned to low-key hate dream sequences. Most dream sequences that I come across in novels like to think that they're being very mysterious and symbolic, but they're quite overt, quite like bashing around the head. You're like, you know what they're getting at. And most of them, most of the time, do nothing to drive forward the plot. So they end up just annoying me because it's like, no, get on with it. I want to find out what's actually going on, but I have to read this just in case there is something that's driving. Oh no, it's just more obvious symbolism. Snore, go away. Basil and Talia have made it to a new community. It's not really specified apart from they have snow and they do have apple trees. So Talia sent off an apple to try to reach her family. And that's the end of the book. What did I just read? What have you just listened to? Nothing got resolved. What happened with the cult? What happened with the embryos? What happened with all the riots in the outer loops and the stuff going on in the inner loops? And that lady, the Anna the elf lady, who I thought she'd make a reappearance because she died off screen. Like it was just like a footnote in an article in this world by the Megacorp that, well, what happened to the Megacorp as well? Like, have they been taken down? Who fucking knows? I didn't think they'd actually kill off Anna that way because there was such a hype in introducing her. She seemed like she was going to be a much bigger character than she actually was. And, there's a description the author gave her. But no, she just literally dies in prison because of What? We never even got the scene where Talia inevitably doubles over in pain as her digestive system starts working again and shits herself. We never even got that. What was the point? What was the point of this book? To be honest, this isn't the worst book I've ever read. This is probably the most ridiculous young adult book I've read, but it's not the worst. It's not like House of Night Marked, which is just offensive and terrible and in your face and ridiculous. And what's her face? She's such a Mary, so it's awful, awful. I'm definitely going to cover it. So it's not in the same league as that. It's just, this book is bizarre. It's ridiculous. It goes 0 to 100. Action, 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 action. It's a wild ride, ultimately a waste of time, because what got resolved? They got to a new community that has apple tree. Okay. What happened to her family? She doesn't know what happened to her family because the gizmo her dad gave her doesn't work. It doesn't get signal. So she sent a messenger back to the city with an apple. So we're none the wiser of anything that... It's like when I finished reading Divergent, and, you know, in the third book, spoiler alert, when Triss dies, and I realised, what the fuck actually got resolved? So they found out that they've basically been this giant genetic experiment from day one, and then they save the city, but then what happens to all the other cities? What happens? What? Waste of time. This book is, well, it's all right for a laugh, so it's not an entire waste of time. Like, it was quite humorous in how ridiculous it did get. But that is my review of Hungry. That's my painstaking review. Hungry by H.A. Swain. Maybe don't bother with it. Maybe if, like, ridiculous fiction is your cup of tea, maybe do. And that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for sticking through with me. If you enjoyed it, do remember to like, comment, subscribe. I make new videos whenever I feel like it. Now, I've come back. I'm going to make new videos, newer content, different content. We'll see how it goes. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.